All right, so just wanted to do a formal video here for a potential upgrade to the onboard air system. I've used it a couple times now, and I do have larger tires. I have 35 by 11 and a half Falcon Wild Peak, the new RTs. And they're a 65 PSI tire, so when I aired down, I was not able to air back up on the onboard Rivian system within one cycle before it overheated and shuts down on its own. So that's a known thing with these air pumps, as most of them have a limited cycle time before they're going to shut down due to temperature. So I was kind of expecting that. I'm familiar with these pumps. I've been using them for a while now on various off-roading applications. And there's been a lot of improvements in them somewhat recently. So I figured there's got to be something better for the Rivian 2. I guess the second component to that is not only did it stop, but it just took forever. It was, I think, 25 plus minutes that the pump was running, and then moving the air chuck to each tire. It's not the greatest hoses and stuff that they give you with the Rivian. Each time you disconnect, they're not self-sealing, so it bleeds out the residual air in the line, so you lose a little bit there too. So anyways, what I had already been wanting to do was to go to a 4-tire inflation system. So I chose the MOORFlate system, and I've used this a few times now. It's really nice. There's other reviews on this, so I'm not going to go into that, but I already have it connected up. I'm showing you one side here, but they're nice quick connects, so very easy to use, and just makes it a lot easier to both air down and then air back up. So what I really want to show you here is, again, hopefully an upgrade to the whole system. And after a bunch of research, I found this TCBL pump on Amazon. And the main thing that I liked about it, as you can see at the top here, it's got two heads to it. So it's basically two pumps in one. Also, in my research, I found, they basically use this same pump on their tank versions, so attached to a pretty big tank. But of course, I didn't want one that had the tank. I don't want to drag all that along with me, and really it's doesn't buy you a whole lot, if anything, in this application, because you want to fill up tires anyway, so you're not trying to just keep the pressure at a certain point by having a volume behind it. So anyways, that's a whole nother story too. But this pump has pretty good amount of features on it. I mean, it's digital. You can just turn the pressure up or down on it. I haven't played with this much, but all I'm really going to use it for is just to set the pressure and see how long it takes. So I figured I'd start off here. Got my MOORFlate system here, and you can see I'm aired down to about 20 PSI. So that's about the absolute lowest I would ever go. Don't know that you're really gonna be able to see it here, but the tires are starting to flatten out a bit. The last time I aired down to, I think, about 27 PSI to do some off-roading on some fairly rocky terrain. I would probably only go down to this 20 PSI if I was like on sand and going slow, most likely. But anyways, so I think 20 PSI is gonna be my worst case scenario, so that's why I went with that. And I've got the MOORFlate system hooked up to my house compressor. So just wanted to do this as a comparison. I don't know if this is really a great comparison, but I guess if nothing else, it tells me if this pump that I just showed you is going to be better than when I got here at home. So you can see this is a 150 PSI. This is a good old Craftsman. It's probably 20 years old. It just won't die. But anyways, that's a good thing. But yeah, not going to really worry about specs or anything. But again, it's got a pretty big tank here, and it normally works pretty good for filling up tires. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, but you can see it's already filled up here to almost 150 PSI. So I'm going to go ahead and crank up here the regulator, and we'll get it plugged in. It's gonna go to full pressure. So we'll see kind of the best case scenario for airing up at home versus airing up out in the wild. So I'll get this plugged in here. All right, so at 8:48, I stopped the video. Remember, it started at 20 seconds. So 8 minutes, 28 seconds. Of course, I did have a few wasted seconds moving the slide valve, but whatever. Anyways, my old Craftsman seems to be hanging in there pretty good. That's a decent time for 35s, I think. So anyways, let's move on to testing the TCBL, see what it does. All right, so first, before we plug this into the Rivian, obviously that's the idea, right? This is a AC pump, so the DC pumps that are out there, 12 volt, they would normally connect to a battery. There's really no easy option or really any option that I've found so far to connect that to the Rivian. So really, you have to find an AC pump, and there's a pretty limited number of them out there. So anyways, I already know that this should be fine, but just to prove it out here, let's go ahead and plug this in. I got a clamp meter up here on the AC outlet. So let's see here, I'll get this plugged in. And let's see if I can capture this here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the pump on to see what kind of amps it pulls. So looks like it got up to about 10, a little bit over, which makes sense. We're at 110 volts. So right about 1100 watts that it's pulling, so should be good on the inverter. And also, just to show you here, I was on the pump setting for full power. I could actually, to do more of a soft startup, which I think I'm going to go ahead and do anyways, this is a 2-speed pump, so another nice feature. I'm going to go to 50% power when we get it hooked on the Rivian side. So we'll go ahead and do that now. All right, so I got the TCBL connected up to the MOORFlate system. And again, both sides going to 2 tires each, so 4 tires total as before, and it's connected up to the TCBL. So we're at about 19 PSI, kind of nice that it shows you that there. And also a little more accurate gauge here, I think, 19.7 PSI. So back down to the kind of worst case pressure again here. So I'm gonna go ahead and, like I mentioned, I'm gonna set this to 50% when I turn it on, just so it's hopefully a little bit easier on the inverter, but then once it gets going, I'll switch it to 100%. So let's go ahead and set the pressure here on the pump. 65. Alright, go 50%. 100. Alright, so it's in about 1 minute, 10 seconds when that started. So now we'll just wait here until get up to 65. You can tell here, hopefully it comes out in the video, but this is not extremely loud into the pump either. It's a nice isolation feed on it, suction cup style. All right, so at 1340, the pump ended up shutting off. I kind of forgot this pump can only set in 5 PSI increments. So I don't know, a little strange. It's only showing 55 and it wants to go to 70. That's why in the middle of it, I bumped it up to 70. But anyways, it's probably the actual pressure sensor switch is seeing closer to what this gauge is seeing, is my guess. Versus whatever sensor they have here. So anyways, it stopped a little bit short, but so we got up to the about 64 PSI at 1340. We started at 110, so that's about 12 minutes, 30 seconds. Probably needed a little bit more, so we'll call it 13 minutes. So I think that's still pretty good for a 35s. This pressure is going to drop a bit. It's actually almost hard for me to touch these fittings. They're fairly hot. Not going to burn yourself hot, as you can see, but after you hold on to it for 5-10 seconds, they're hot. So kind of to be expected. It's heating up the gas, but anyways, so all in all, I think I'm pretty happy with this, and just seems like a good pump. It's not too big, and nice and quiet, and the inflating the 4 tires at once really should help. There's other videos on YouTube you can watch on this, but really the benefit of running a system like this, it's kind of counterintuitive, but for one, you don't want to get the too big of pressure hoses here as the pumps are fairly small, so the larger volume of hose you're pumping through, it's been already shown that it's just going to slow it down. So just get the standard size hoses, 1/4 inch size hosing if you're going from MOORFlate, and then yeah, this four tire kit. The main thing, again, that's not really recognized is when you have 4 tires connected up to one pump, you're actually basically increasing the efficiency of the pump, because a valve stem is the main restriction preventing that pump from flowing all the air that it possibly could. So when you have 4 valve stems open at once, you're basically able to get a bit more flow, and therefore a bit more efficiency is what it's been shown to do. So it's not just the pump that's going to help you. That's really nice, but this MOORFlate or similar 4 tire kits is probably going to save you several minutes too, would be my guess. They're also very, very convenient. It rolls up into a nice little case here, and the nice thing is it fits really loose in there, so you actually can stuff it in there pretty good pretty quick with all your accessories and extra stuff that you might buy too. So all in all, I think, if I remember right, the last time I did this, I was at about 27 PSI and was gonna inflate to the 65, and you know, it was about a 30 to 45 minute ordeal, and I still had one tire that was short by about 10 PSI. So, you know, I think this is gonna cut down the time at least in half, and if nothing else, would be a good backup to the Rivian. Or, you know, this doesn't necessarily just apply to Rivians, of course, but I just wanted to show everybody an electric pump, because that's kind of rare, and it actually working off of the Rivian inverter, or maybe some other EV inverter, Lightning or whatnot. But yeah, I think this is gonna save you a lot of time and be convenient. So a couple other things I kind of noticed here I wanted to show you was, for one, you know, this top of the cylinder here is hot, but I mean, it's not scalding hot. So I have another 12-volt pump, and I mean, I'm literally afraid to put it in its bag for catching the bag on fire. I mean, it's just, it'll fry you instantly if you touch any of the body of the pump. So I mentioned earlier that, you know, these fittings here were hot, but they're actually not much hotter than the top of the pump heads here, or the pump heads aren't much more hotter than those. So that's an interesting and nice thing. I'd be pretty confident just pretty much packing this thing right up and you know, heading on down the road. The other thing here though too, I figured, you know, while we're at it, the other advantage of these 4 tire kits is not only for inflating, but it's also for deflating. So I went ahead and I disconnected the hose from the pump there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and do a test here to show you how quickly it deflates too. All right, so we're still at about our, well, we're trying to go to 65, but I'm down to 63.6 as the gas is cooling off. So anyways, close enough. I'm just gonna show you how to get all the way down to 20 PSI here. So I'm just gonna slide the valve here. Step away a little bit, but you can tell this is really loud. I mean, it's getting a lot of flow coming out of there. So we'll let it come down here. It looks like we started at about 40 seconds on this video. Kind of another interesting thing to note is I can actually tell by the flowing pressure about when I get down to this 20 psi. So it needs to be almost down to like 2-3 psi when we actually get down to 20. So that's just something I've kind of learned after doing this a few times. So you can see there we're at, just under 10 psi there, so we still got a ways to go. So just to show you here, we're at about 4 psi. I'll go ahead and close this. So we're still at 24. I'll check it again here at 3 psi flowing. So still over 21. This is where I was saying I think right about 2 psi is where we need to be, but the gauge kind of doesn't read after that, so I'll just let it continue here. All right, so you'll see once I stop it here, this is slowly going to come up. So we're going to end up right about our 20 or just slightly above it. But that's kind of the nice thing here is you're getting a good accurate measurement here. So still a little bit much. So 19.6 and climbing. So I think this is going to end right about where we want to be. Give it a few more seconds here just to verify, but we're at 4 minutes 50 seconds. We started at 40 seconds, so that's about 4 minutes 10 seconds that we really needed to do this. And as you can see, we're going to end up right around 20 psi here. It'll probably go up another one here, but it should taper off. So anyways, that's pretty good. I don't know, I've used deflators, even some of the best ones on the market, and they're hard to adjust, and by the time you walk around and do 4, and I don't know, it's just kind of a pain. This is still just a much easier solution for deflating too. So if you want to help justify the cost, save the money for deflators and do the 4-tire inflation deflation setup too like this, and it'll be a better setup also. So another topic I thought worth maybe discussing as it relates to this 4-tire inflation system is I think people are going to start realizing too, especially if you go to some of these non-EV, more street, off-road rated tires. These are D-load range, again 65 PSI, but I don't need all the load rating that they provide at 65 PSI, and it's just going to make you have a rougher ride and is really not good for tire wear either. There's other good videos about this. Learned most of this from driving a diesel truck that weighs about the same as these, and we deflate those tires too. People have learned on those, when you're not towing or not at a max capacity, it doesn't make sense to run the really high air pressures. It just kind of beats you up. So even though this has air suspension and all that good stuff, you're still going to get a smoother ride, nevertheless better tire wear if you know what pressure to actually run your tires at. So the real way you tell is to do like a chalk test. I actually haven't done that yet, but I still think I have a pretty good idea of what it would come out to be. So long story short, I normally run these at 40 PSI in the front and 35 PSI in the rear. The logic behind the 40 PSI in the front is you got a lot more load on the front tires, the steering tires, as you're steering. So most people by default will just kind of run those 5 PSI higher. So anyways, what you can do with the 4-tire inflation system is I've just inflated all 4 to, about 42 PSI right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and release a little bit to get them all down to about 40. So let that stabilize for a minute. All right, so that's close enough for me. So then what I can do is just pop off the front here because it's the one I want to leave higher. Do the same for the other side. So go back here now, and then I can just get the rears down to 35 PSI. So hopefully that helps people. Again, it's just another tool you can use. You're not stuck running the same pressure front and rear. Works pretty well. And I should have mentioned, the only reason I did the testing to 65 PSI, because as I mentioned, I normally run these at 40 and 35 PSI is, if you're on an adventure and you got to get back to a charging station, I do still run these up at 65 PSI typically, just to ensure I kind of get max efficiency if I'm have some concern over getting back to a charger. So still can do that. It's not a bad ride at all. But yeah, normally I would just only be going up to the 35 and 40 PSI front and rear. So obviously those times that I had earlier, if you're only going up to say the 48 PSI of the all-terrain Rivian tires or similar, not bigger 35 by 11 and a halves, that's gonna cut down the time pretty significantly, several minutes at least. So anyways, hope that helps for those running those tires also. And as a final step when working with this pump, I just happened to notice this last time I used it. Right now we've got 45 PSI trapped inside the pump here. So I want to make sure that that's fully vented from the pump. Maybe not needed, but sure, just give me confidence that not going to hurt any seals or something, leaving it pressurized. So this might be overkill, but basically I'm just going to connect up the pump here now. And I have, all my hoses are disconnected from the tires here. So when I plug this back in, then I'll be able to actually just push on one of the valve stem openings for the tire down there, and that'll bleed all the pressure out of this pump here.